Okay, you're live.
Well, good evening, everyone. I was trying to find it on mine so I can share it, watch. But good evening, everyone. I am Valencia Stovall, former representative, and I know that some people will still recognize me as representative, and that's okay. When you have a title, you usually have it almost always to life most of the times. So I'm excited. This is welcome to 2021, new year here with WCEG Talk Radio. And you're listening to the new WCEG Talk Network on WCEGTalkRadio.com. Watch us on Smart TV, YouTube, WCEG Network. And I'm the host of Issues and Answers. And for the next hour, we'll be talking about issues and answers that are taking place worldwide. But we're the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Last but not least, the topics and opinions on here are those of the show hosts and guests and not of WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Well, of course, the last time that you all saw me, it was, let's see, during the election time, which was in November. And so since then, of course, a lot of things have taken place and have happened. And so some of the things I'm going to go over this afternoon, well, of course, we're going to talk about the primary election that happened January the 5th, the insurrection at the Capitol, COVID-19, the 2021 legislative session, and also the different challenges that, that's going to probably take place during that session. We're going to talk about Georgia Youth Career Center. A lot of people ask, okay, Representative Stovall, you're no longer Representative Stovall. What are you doing now? What are your next steps? So we'll kind of talk about that. So also some upcoming events that I will still be participating in that I started. And so, of course, when you start something, you want to always continue with what you got started. And I was looking for being able to do a watch party on here so that those that are on my site can be able to post in, but I don't see it. It says live. Hold on, y'all. Okay, okay, hold on. I need to turn my volume down. Okay. All right, I wanted to make sure everybody was able to participate. Okay. So the primary election, January the 5th, of course, I know some of you all are still receiving mail. I know I'm still receiving mail from that January the 5th primary election. Now, of course, there were 3 elections going on during that time. You had the Senate race, the special election race, the one which I ran in as a candidate, independent candidate. And then you had the other Senate race with Ossoff and Perdue. And then you had a runoff between McDonald, this is the PSC commission, McDonald and Blackman. And so it was a very heated time during those primary elections. I think the galvanization of people getting out to vote definitely was at very high, a lot of high energy. A lot of times when people are out there telling people to get out to vote, it's important, and people wonder, why should I vote? Is my vote going to count? And I talked about this all during my election that we were actually talking. And so, yes, your vote is important. It's important to vote. And remember that, yes, you had ancestors that went through a lot of struggles to make sure that you have the right to be able to vote. And the most important part is the right for you to be able to choose who you want to represent you in whatever particular office. And understanding that you have local elections, which are actually going to be coming up in November. You have your mayors and city council members who will be running in this particular year. And so you have your state elected officials, which we just finished that election. And then on the federal, that just finished as well. But this year, you are going to have to be paying attention for those local elections because they're just as important as what's going on in Washington, D.C. And so a lot of times, even with the primary election, after the November election, everyone heard, oh, Georgia is now blue. And so everybody's excited. That's good. I did switch my party to independent. So I'm not on anybody's side, whether it's Republican or Democrat. I'm in the middle, and I'm able to proudly say I'm an independent so that I can be able to watch both sides and not have to be beholden to a particular party because of what party leadership says. And that's what I want you all to make sure that you're mindful of and watching, even as you're moving into the election coming up in November, even though most of those elections are nonpartisan, but you still have people that are part of a party. And then also as you move into the next election cycle in 2022, which will be, of course, the statewide elections will be taking place. All the elected officials, state elected officials will run again. And then also that special election primary Senate race, that would be up for re-election again. And I've been having people ask, Representative, are you going to run again? I don't know. That's in the future. We'll see which way the Lord leads me to then. But until then, I have other work to do in the community to making sure that we have the best people that can live here in our community and they have all the resources that they need to be able to have. So going back to that whole thing, is Georgia really blue? So I want to add some clarity to that statement. So during the primary election, yes, Joe Biden won, President-elect Joe Biden won by a popular vote, and which in return, he was able to collect all of the electoral college votes to make him be in the position to be inaugurated on the 20th. So, but when you look at it on the state level, and when I say state level, that means state elections of state elected officials, Georgia is still a Republican state on the state level. And then I also want you to know that everybody that voted for Joe Biden were not all Democrats. So the independents also made up a large number. It's about 1 million independents. And so they made up a large portion of those votes as well. So, and then you had some Republicans that just did not vote for whatever reason that they decided not to vote. So I want you all to be mindful when you're saying or hearing things, because sometimes it's in a general context. But just know that because if Georgia had turned blue, then at the state capitol, you would have had a governor, your state elected official, because it wasn't a governor's race in 2019, but in 2020. But what you would have seen is in the House of Representatives, and in the Senate, you would have seen a changeover of a majority if Georgia was truly blue. So I just wanted you all to understand that, and you're going to see what I'm talking about as the legislative session kicks into gear. It started on last Monday. They're out this week because of budget hearings and, of course, other stuff, but you'll see them doing online budget hearings talking about what the governor had presented, which I'm going to also touch on as well during this session. But just keep that in mind. Georgia may be blue on a national level, but still there's some other parts to that are uncertain, and that is also those independents. All right, so now let's talk about this insurrection at the Capitol. And you all feel free to chime in on the comments. You have a question or you want my opinion about something. You know, I'm no longer a state elected official, so I was using a lot of reserve when I talked a lot when I was elected official, and some people would laugh. They said, "What? You mean you were reserved a little bit?" Yes, I was reserved. And so now I'm free as a private citizen to say what I want to be able to say. You know, that freedom of speech part of it, I can be able to enact that. And so, but the things I'll be saying are things to help educate you on what's really going on, giving you the backside of the story. I was inside of the Georgia State legislature body. I've seen a lot of things that take place. that the average person, you as a constituent, do not have a clue about it. And so this is the goal of my shows moving forward, is keeping you educated on those things that you normally wouldn't even pay attention to, and to make you think. You don't have to agree with what I say. You can disagree, you can agree, you can be on the fence. I just want to make sure that we're getting the information out there to you. We'll be bringing guests on the show and talk about different industries. We want to look at our small business. I'm a small business owner. And now with the new COVID money that was released, how is that going to affect our small businesses? How is it the new plan that President-elect Biden is going to be pushing towards Congress? How is that going to affect small businesses and the employment? All those things are important. We talk about childcare education. You know, that was my big thing with education. So we'll be bringing people along with that. And if there's someone or something that you want to know more information about, definitely reach out to me and send in your information. You can go on my Facebook page and send me a message, or you can email me at contact@ghoststovall.com. That's CONTACT@ghoststovall.com. If there's something that you really want to know, or you would like to see a guest on the show. So the insurrection at the Capitol. Wow, wow, wow. That's all I can say. Is that when you think about America, and I have several friends who are not American born, and we always talk about international situations and topics. And so this particular person said, you know, America is known around the world as the #1 place to make sure that democracy is done correctly. All the other countries look at us in America to say, hey, that's how democracy is supposed to be done. Now, you may ask, after the insurrection and as the current commander-in-chief is exiting out, we may not be getting that trophy for a little while. It's going to take a while for the trust to be built back up, not just from foreign countries, but here in America. There's a lot of things that have accumulated that has come to what we're looking at now with that insurrection. That just didn't happen overnight. And so there are a lot of things that have taken place that kind of led up to it. It's almost like you have I always talk about the jack in the box. You keep turning that little handle on the jack, and then once jack is out, you can't put jack back in the box. And so that is what actually has happened with COVID-19, with the racial injustices that we've been seeing for a long time, but nobody wanted to really acknowledge it and now move forward for solutions. And then allowing an executive of a commander-in-chief to not stay with protocol of what we know as our president is supposed to be as far as behavior-wise. And so he has some inhibitors, and that is just the truth. So when you look at that insurrection, yes, it was a violation. It's very disappointing and heartbreaking to see that you would have the state capitol and these people bum rush their ways into the state capitol and said, yeah, this is our state capitol. Yes, it's all about state capitol. We pay taxes for it. But there's a structure and a protocol, just like at the state capitol at that's the U.S. Capitol there in Washington, D.C., with just like the state capitol in downtown Atlanta. There are protocols, and there are protocols in place to be able to keep order. Because if you don't have order, there's no way bills can be passed. There's no way a budget can be passed. And then what happens, the people are the ones that suffer. So I did just want to kind of mention that as far as the insurrection. It's enough been talked about it, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of my time talking about it. It's on every news station, and everybody's already formed many of their own opinions about it. So moving into talking about COVID-19, it's, you know, a lot of people have lost their lives. A lot of people, even the ones who are now who are survivors, they still have to wonder and contemplate about the after effects of COVID-19 on their bodies and even their family members. And so my prayers definitely go out to all of the people that have suffered a loss or now even suffering through COVID. And whether that's you lost a loved one or your job has been affected, your health has been affected, even your family relationship. You know, you think about kids who may have been used to talking to grandma and grandpa and going to their house, especially during the holidays, and they've been told you can't go see grandma and grandpa or granddaddy and grandmama. And so trying to explain that to them, it's a lot going on mentally with a lot of people. And so if you're facing a lot of mental anguish or depression, there are people to talk to. Taking your life is not the answer. It might end it for you. It will end it for you. But think about the people that you have left behind that's going to have to cope with why. Even though you leave a note, it's still going to be a why situation. So reach out to the National Suicide Hotline and talk to your minister in our different faith-based community. Talk to somebody about what you're going through because there's so many people that are suffering silently. So now when you talk about the vaccines, I definitely encourage you to check with your local health department because all of them have a certain amount of vaccines, even though they have a selected group that they're actually focusing on now, but eventually they want everybody to be able to get vaccinated. Now, so I'm going to ask, Valencia, have you got your vaccination? No, I'm going to wait a little while. I want to kind of see what's going on with everybody else. So I'm one of them skeptics, but I've also been making sure I'm taking precautions. I'm not in a large crowd. I'm not going out like that. I'm wearing my mask, and that's what I continue to encourage everyone to do is be careful about where you're going and mindful about what you're doing. And so now let's get into the 2021 legislative session. Remember, you're listening to WCEG Talk Radio on the WCEG Network. And I'm Valencia Stovall, former representative, coming to you and just talking about what's going on with issues and answers here. And you can always follow us on Twitter, on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio or at WCEG Network. So, and like us on Facebook. So the 2021 legislative session has started. Yeah, I was a little sad. You know, I'm so used to for 8 years being down there, hearing that bell ring. And I was even texting to one of my colleagues. And I said, you know, I think I paid attention to the speaker too much because I was able to repeat the opening remarks that he does every day of legislative session. He says, legislative session is now in, so will all members take your seat? And he goes on, so y'all have to listen to the recording, you'll get the joke. And so I just kind of listened to him a little bit too much, but that's exciting, the energy that takes place down at the Capitol. Of course, there's a little bit of difference of the energy because of COVID-19. They're not all able to sit at their desk to be able to vote. They've been split up. Some are in the chamber, some are in the gallery in the chamber, and some are in room 341. But they have a device to be able to still vote and making sure that, and you're always able to go online and watch the deliberation of the session. And I encourage you to do that, especially now, if you all have gone out to vote, don't let that vote just be done with. You need to keep yourself educated and informed because that vote going to come back up again. And you need to know who you're voting for. It's important. Don't look at the party. Look at the person that you're voting for and what they're saying and connect it to see if it makes sense. Everybody has everybody don't have common sense, but most people have common sense. And then if you don't, you know some other people that have common sense. So help them to be able to kind of cipher through those things that you hear them saying. Because some stuff they are not even capable of doing, but they'll tell you because you don't know any difference about it. You think that it's possible. So go to legis.ga.gov. That's legis.ga.gov. That is the main website for the legislative session. From there, you can watch the House deliberation or the Senate. Now, there are 236 members that represent us across the state of Georgia, plus the governor. And so there's plenty of representation. Everyone has one senator and one representative. So contact them. This session is starting now. This is the time to reach out to them and talk to them about what they plan on doing during this session. No bills have been passed. They've been introduced, but no committee hearings have taken place to hear bills. So you at the beginning of the session. And each week when I come on Mondays at 4, I'm going to kind of walk us through, hey, what's going on with session and how to get involved. So budget hearings I talked about, that's going on this week. But Governor Kemp gave his State of the State Union address, which he does every year during session, to kind of let us know what it is that he's asking the General Assembly to do as far as with budget when it comes to the budget. And remember, you all, if you have any questions, make sure you're commenting on Facebook, so I can kind of hear what your comments are. If you have any questions, definitely ask them. If I'm not able to answer them, I'll tell you, I don't know the answer to that. Let me get back with you. All right. So I'm going to go over a few things of what was in the State of the State. This was held on day 4 of session, which was January the 14th. The overall budget they're looking at presenting is a $27.2 billion budget. I believe that's right. So one of the things he talked about was spurring some job creations in the healthcare industry. And so also PPE, which is protection equipment, personal protection equipment. Looking at those companies that have that, giving them a tax credit, like the pharmaceutical companies and the medical equipment manufacturers. So there are some other companies that are able to get that credit, but they now will be according to the budget. Now remember, this budget has not been passed. It has to be agreed upon by the House and the Senate. And more than likely, it's going to go to what's called conference committee. But right now, the beginning, they're going to be also working on the amended budget. That's the first budget that's always passed. And that amended budget is for looking at what happened from June the 1st, 2020. I'm sorry, June the 1st, 2020, up until now when when they're in session, and seeing if there are any changes that might need to be made. Some areas or some departments might need more money, some might need less money. So that's what the first budget that they're going to be looking at, the amended budget. So one of the things he said, and now if you're an educator or you work in the school system, you should be excited about this one. The one-time $1,000 to public school classroom teachers and other employees. And the estimation was about 200,000 over the state. And that's $240 million that's going to be set aside. Yeah. Now, the question that y'all need to make sure y'all ask those educators is contacting your local school board to making sure that you're going to get that 1,000. Because one time before, the General Assembly had passed for a bonus for the teachers and the educators and everyone, and they really didn't get it all. So that, anyway, that's the proposal. $5.7 million for test administer help with testing, administering the tests, and no cuts to the state agencies and departments. So no one's looking at being furloughed this year. No widespread layoffs to any of the state employees. No new taxes as well was one of the things. I would like to commend our National Guard. They really stepped up during the time of COVID, and he kind of mentioned some of the things that they were able to do and accomplish here in Georgia. And one of the things that actually helped in the different schools to distribute about 948,000 meals. So kudos to the National Guard. And I understand that some of them now have gone up to the U.S. Capitol to help protect during this time of uneasiness in Washington, D.C. So thank you all for your service. Income and sales tax were up $722 million for the first months of fiscal year 2021. So you remember I told you fiscal year starts June the 1st to July the 31st. And so the first 6 months of what we're in now, so there was an increase in tax revenue. But here's the kicker to that. COVID will probably end up shrinking that amount because many people, when they start filing their tax returns, those who had unemployment, most of them were paying taxes. So when the state has to start refunding taxes back, that's going to take that number down. Because there were money that was withheld from the unemployment check. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in. The rainy day fund, which is the funds that are set up just for a major emergency happens and the legislative body is not in session and they got to have money to be able to make things work. One example, of course, was with COVID-19. Another example, if you all remember back to the snowstorm that happened, And it was when we went in session, and so they had to dip into the rainy day funds for that. So they like to keep that. The legislative body like to keep that at a certain amount, but it was untouched. And then he said that they kept the AAA rating, bond rating, which is good when you have to borrow money for construction for different projects across the state. And of course, there's uncertainty in the global and national markets. And so one of the things he talked about was that his office is going to be promoting development in all 159 counties. And that's very important because sometimes all 159 counties don't get all the development. So y'all remember he said that. So there's investment in infrastructure and economics. They're going to be looking at more public-private partnerships. Rural Innovation Fund, about $40 million. Empower small business and entrepreneurship, which is definitely needed. Also, the fiscal year, they're going to have a grant to local communities, about $20 million for the rural areas, about $10 million and $10 million each after each year. Georgia has one of the highest rate of uninsured in the country. And so one of the things he talked about is struggling to allow to be able to have something in place so that those people don't have to pay so much for healthcare. The ones that can pay, and most of them can't pay. That's why we have the highest uninsured. So he's going to be doing offering some things with expansion of the healthcare. $76 million for the Georgia Pathways and Access. That's the new healthcare program that his office has implemented. And this will be for low income. There's a hand up and private insurance competition. Now, I'm not going to go over everything that he said because I'm not going to take all that time on my show. But I'm just kind of giving you some highlights. And you all can always go and Google State of the State Union address by Governor Kemp, and it'll come up and you can listen to it. Then rewind it over and listen again. There's going to be all the schools would now have, it's going to be a total of $647 million to the amended budget to restore funding and hold the schools harmless because of enrollment decreases. So a lot of schools, what happens every year, they put in amount of what the enrollment is going to be based on what they call the FTE count, and that's full-time equivalent. I don't know if you all who have kids in school, on one day out of a year, 2 times out of a year, you hear the school saying, make sure your child is at school. Make sure your child is at school in October. It's a certain day in October. Well, that's when across the state, each child is counted. And that's how the state looks at how they're going to propose whatever that budget amount is for that local school district. And so because many of those numbers for enrollment decrease, many of the school districts end up suffering a lot, because of that. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's key and very important. When I heard that, I started laughing. This is a side note, y'all. So many of you all know that I serve on the advisory council for 7 Pillars Career Academy. And although I'm not a state elected official, that does not keep me from still serving as advisory council because I still have friends down at the state capitol. But a situation happened with the school system where they were taking money away from 7 Pillars because their enrollment had dropped. Well, in the state of Georgia, the Department of Education does not take money away from schools, districts when their enrollment drops. They would already advance funded them the money. So they gave them the money in advance. And so when they do that count, if it's low, they don't say, okay, all the school districts, y'all got to give us this money back. They don't do that. But, there was a situation that happened with 7 Pillars and they took that money. So when I heard the governor say that, I started laughing. I said, well, I hope the school system was paying attention. If they're going to be held harmless and 7 Pillars is a part of Clayton County Public Schools, then they're supposed to be held harmless too. So I want y'all to be watching because I'm going to be watching as well. But those are the type of things that when you don't know, things happen. And then you as a parent, even if you don't have a child there, knowing that children in your community are getting a good education should be very important to you. Because even if you don't have a child, it doesn't stop you from paying those taxes. Even as a senior, you're still paying a certain level of taxes to the school system. So that's your investment that you have to be concerned about. Okay. All right, moving along. Oh, and he's going to continue $573 million to continue for the next year. The Government Emergency Relief Fund. So many of our special needs parents, their students were really suffering and still are during COVID-19. Most of those students are ones that need that one-on-one contact, and they have to be able to feel and see and smell that person to keep them on track. They're not like your traditional student and most of them are having problems too. So if you just imagine a regular student having problems, and then you add in having a disability, whether it's learning, whether it's physical, and you're not there no one's there to be able to help you. And parents are not educators. Most of them are not. So they depend a lot on the school to help them with that process. Well, many of them suffered. So Governor Kim has set aside $10 million for emergency relief funds to help special needs families. Now he get a big hand clap for that. Now some of the other stuff I will is still in debate, but he gets a hand clap for that one. And see, I couldn't say that if I was elected official. I had to be cautious about what I said, because I might have had a bill that I need him to sign, and they always watching and seeing what you're saying. And if you said a little bit too much and they didn't like, your bill was not going anywhere. It was making out the committee. It was not, and if it made it to the governor's desk and you said too much, guess what? It's gonna be vetoed. So I don't have to worry about that anymore. Okay, what is the funding again? Okay, the funding was for the governor's emergency relief funding of $10 million to go help with special need families because of a lot of the mishaps and struggles they were having. Many of them could not, most of them, the children were always getting some kind of therapy while they were in school, or some other additional tutoring and additional services. And many of those were slowed down because of COVID, because you got to look at the employees or the people providing the service had to also think about what was a danger to them. So a lot of them have suffered even financially. So that is why that I give them kudos on that government emergency relief funds. All right, moving on down the list. All right, so juniors and seniors in college, got some good news for you. The proposal in the budget is for $5 million to help financial hardship students so they can be able to graduate. And so that happens a lot. You can be a junior or senior and say you short $200 or $100 to pay for the rest of your class. Well, you can't move on if you owe that money. And just think you're a senior. You went through all this with COVID-19. You owe $100 remaining on your student account, and you can't even graduate. You done did all 3 years and plus how many days or months. And because of that $100, you won't be able to graduate. So this particular fund is set up to be able to help those students who are juniors and seniors who had financial hardship to be able to give them their money to be able to pay off that particular money they owe, so they can be able to move forward. He gets another kudos for that one. He probably not gonna get a whole lot, but that's another one, because that's very important. I heard a lot of stories about our college students just need a little bit more. I served on the advisory committee for the College of Science, Dean of Science at Clayton State University. And those are one of the things that we always had a conversation on every year. How do we raise funds to be able to help those college students that just need a little bit more financial help? It's not enough to go get a loan, but it's enough to hinder them from being successful. So there's also going to be a reform to citizen arrest statute, more training program to identify warning signs for human trafficking. They don't call it sex trafficking, they call it human trafficking. So you're going to hear some more about that. Now, one of the things I didn't hear him mention was about the unemployment claims. So when I was serving in the legislature, myself along with some of my Democratic colleagues, we actually put forth a lot of effort, and I have to give kudos to Representative Sandra Scott, because she led the charge on it. And so some other colleagues, we all picked up on it, but she was the one that said, we're going to go and start doing a media campaign, a press conference. And each one of these locations for Department of Labor locations, asking them why these people are having to suffer because of claims that have not been finalized or have not been pushed through. So it was a lot of work, y'all, and you're thinking about all this during COVID. So kudos to my Democratic colleagues who actually was stood out in the gap, and most of them were the women. And we had Chairman James Beverly, who's now elected as the minority leader for the House. So kudos to them, and they're going to keep fighting. I told them I'm just standing on the sideline. Let me know what I can do. But he didn't mention anything about helping to assist with those unemployment claims, which are very, very important. The next thing, or working with the Department of Labor, he didn't mention nothing in his whole speech about Department of Labor. Now, if y'all see I was wrong, please correct me, send me a note. Say, listen, he did say that. Then I go back and look at it, and then next week I correct myself and say I made a mistake. I didn't hear anything about homelessness or housing and the evictions, everything that's going on. Yes, some people say, well, the federal government is going to give money. Yeah, but there's still a level of help and support that the state has to do as well, especially if we're doing it with education, because guess what? The federal government sent COVID money down for education. And also some of the other things that the federal government is sitting down, but as a state, we have a responsibility. The state has a responsibility. Y'all so used to saying we. So in between time, I had to self-correct myself. This 8 years, so it's a habit. So anyway, they have a responsibility. All right. So now, that was it on that. I just wanted to kind of mention that. One other thing he did mention that prison and juvenile facility guards are going to receive an increase. I think about a 10% increase that they'll receive. So you're listening to WCEG Talk Radio. Follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram. And I want to say the topics and opinions on this show, and by me as a show host and guest, are not WCEG's opinions, but they are of me, Valencia Stovall. And thank you for your continued support to this radio. And I'm going to be on again next Monday at 4 o'clock, so set your calendar, and we'll be talking about some new issues. There's always issues, but we want to find answers to those issues. All right. So I got a chance to listen to the issues that about, someone brought this to my attention about teachers. So many of the teachers, of course, had to be in their homes, confined, to be able to deliver education, the best education opportunities for our students. So I asked one of my teacher friends, I said, did you all receive any stipend or something from the school district? Because I know your utility bill went up because usually you're not at home and usually wasn't using your internet. And then I said, so did y'all receive any stipend? They said, no. Now, I thought that was kind of strange, because guess what? Teachers not in the building. So that means that there's normal money that the school districts, and this is not no particular school district, y'all, I'm talking overall. So the money that's normally set aside in that budget for utilities and upkeep and maintenance of the building, nobody's in there. Not the number of people that's usually in there. So why they could have maybe gave the teachers a little extra bonus or something for them being able to have to use their home. They'll have to rearrange their home. They got a home office. I wonder if they're able to even write that off on the taxes. I don't know. I'm not a tax expert. But that's amazing. I just want to bring that up as a thought. And so any of you all who are teachers out there, or your family members are teachers, I definitely like to hear your comment on that, because that's an issue. That they should have some people, when they were at home, they would have been at school. Yeah, but they at home using up extra utility and eating a little bit more and a whole lot of other stuff more. They said, well, they can, but still, you think about them having to now set up a new structure in their house to make sure that they're delivering the best education. And another thing is that usually the teachers are taught they are taught classroom management skills, right? But how do you manage a class when you got 30 to 40 kids, all of them on Zoom, and you trying to tell them that, hey, mute your phone, mute your device. I see your parents walking across the back, they smoking, they cussing, they doing some of everything. Or the student decide they're gonna take their face off, block the face off, and don't participate. How are they supposed to keep control over those classrooms? So, you start thinking about all those things like that. But I had just thought about it. Now, another topic I want to talk about. And my time running low, so I got a couple more things on my list to get to. $15 minimum wage. Everybody's been talking about it. And I think the president-elect might have had something in his proposal. And with that, I really want to hear what you all thoughts are on this $15 minimum wage. I'm gonna give you my thoughts, and probably my thoughts not gonna be aligned up to your thoughts. But but I'm gonna give you my thoughts. So I had Deborah say that on it's a comment on Facebook that they have to set up a separate space in their home, and she was saying that was a good point, which they do. And I definitely my hats off to educators. And many, guess what? Also, I heard that many of the substitute teachers have quit. They said they weren't coming back. And so now you got school districts struggling to try to get substitute teachers. Now they're about to pay them more just to get them to become substitute teachers and stay in. So it's a lot going on with this distance learning. And we're gonna have we're gonna talk about that during one of the sessions, one of my hour sessions as well, because there's a lot more that you all need to know. So $15 an hour minimum wage. Okay. I don't think it's gonna be good for some workers who aren't skilled. Now, when you think about it, I passed by Wendy's on Moreland Avenue. They had a sign up said now hiring. And they said they were paying $10 an hour. And you know what? The customer service was a little bit better than the Wendy's on the other side of town. When I go around, I have to always check my bag, and something is always missing. I don't know if that happened to you all, but I always said, let me check my bag, because I hate to get down the street, have to come back, get back in line, because you know you're not going inside. Anyway, that's a whole nother story. But usually when you look at $15 an hour, you think about workers that are in our warehouses. Usually most of them are making $13 to $15 an hour. They have learned the skill. They didn't just show up at work and start working the cash register or flipping or cooking the meals or whatever else that they were doing. And so then the argument comes up to say, well, they need a living. They need to be able to pay for where they live, and they don't need to be having 2 or 3 jobs. I agree. They don't need to have 2 or 3 jobs. I think that's where our government has to step in when it comes down to career training and support, and making sure those, when they finish, before they finish high school, that's why I love the dual enrollment program. I love work-based, but some school districts need to work on their work-based learning, though. They're not as efficient as they should be. But I love those programs because you're giving the skills to the children, to the students. Once they graduate, some places they graduating with certification. They automatically can earn more money. I don't think in those jobs that are paying the current minimum wage should go up to $15 an hour. I'm gonna tell you what else is gonna happen. And this is, I'm putting on my business hat now. The business hat says that I gotta look at my bottom line and my profits. So if I can go to automation, and remember, as you have seen in the last couple of years, more of our fast food restaurants and other places are more automated than they used to be. I think it's going to come to the point where I don't have to have 3 people physical in my establishment. I can set up the outside, just like some of the McDonald's you see now. You can order. After a while, you're going to be able to punch in your order, and then some of y'all, just like you go to Chick-fil-A, you pre-order and you just go around and pick it up. So you're going to see more and more automation being implemented into these businesses so that they can be able to cover that $15 an hour requirement if it passes, through with Congress and get signed into law. Now, will that also increase your cost of living? Because remember, if the business had to go up, they're going to have to go up on their prices. And then that means that some other stuff is going to increase. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And then also, the employers can then decide, just like they're doing now, on the requirements. So just because I'm paying $15 an hour don't mean I have to hire you. So I can put in some other stipulations, and then guess what? The number of qualified people that have more levels of skills going to apply more to those jobs. So what's going to happen? You still going to have those ones who are not skilled, going to be under and unemployed because they can't meet the qualifications. You know, I sat on the commission, the Georgia Commission for Literacy Commission. And back in 2018, there was a study that was done by Deloitte. And you all can Google this, Georgia Literacy Commission, Deloitte, they did a commission, a study. So you can Google Deloitte study. And what they said is that by 2018, when this was in 2017, they said by 2018, about 800,000 something people were not going to be able to, it's going to be unemployed, be facing unemployment because of their literacy rate, because their inability to be able to do reading comprehension and also math computation skills. And it was going to be replaced because of automation. So if you all have some young people that you're around, your children, you all need to push them into learning that coding, learning how to do that programming, because that's where those jobs are heading at. Even though they go to automation, guess what? Those machines got to get fixed. Those machines have to be programmed. Okay, so that's my little bit on that. So we can talk about it if you all want to come in and we can talk about it a little bit more. And some also, let me see if I have another note here. How many, okay, going back to when I was talking about the math, I'll talk about that a little bit later if I have some time left, because we're running on time, but we're having a good conversation. I wanted to kind of talk to you all about this article that I read in Human Times. Human Times, you all can Google that. They're a magazine that talks about human HR, human resource and workforce. And they conducted a survey, and this kind of goes back when I talked about racial injustices. And what they said, they found that 2 in 5 U.S. retail shoppers have experienced unfair treatment on the basis of their race or skin tone. And Black shoppers are more likely than white shoppers to receive unfair treatment based on their skin color. So 2 in 5 of U.S. shoppers, if you're a person of color, you are more than likely to be able to experience unfair treatment just because of your skin tone or what you look like. That's sad. Now, on the health and safety in the workplace, so many people are working on these jobs, and these some of the businesses are not compliant to OSHA regulated like they're supposed to with CDC requirements. Okay, somebody was trying to call in. They must don't know I'm on my show. Okay, so according to this article in the Human Times, 9 months after the beginning of the pandemic, there are still no specific requirements that as a nation, every business that has employees has to implement to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And then they had one person that said OSHA has issued, so many COVID citations and kept hundreds of thousands of workers safe on their job. And of course, somebody had another side to that story. They said, no, that's not true what they said. They haven't been doing what they're supposed to be doing. But safety rights now are really weak. So the rights of the workers when it comes to safety is really weak. With the vaccine being available to essential workers, there's still public trust issues. And so if you're working in a location or a place and you know someone and you know that they have not been following the CDC guidelines, and go look it up. You can Google and see what the CDC guidelines for businesses. And if they have not called the federal government, OSHA, and report, you can report anonymously, because you're putting yourself in harm's way and your family in harm's way when those businesses want you to come and work, but they're not providing the protective equipment like they're supposed to, and all those safeguards that have to be in place. So someone commented about those companies that can afford to pay 15 because they're paying their executive bonuses instead of paying the people. Well, that's a whole nother point. You have a good point there. I can't argue with that they can afford to pay the 15, but I'm just telling you, when I put my business hat on, what I see is going to happen moving forward. And then if you look at it from this point of view, if that worker has the skills and the training, they automatically would dictate what the market is going to be bearing and what the market is going to pay. So that's another point. That's my flip side to what you said. So you got a good point there, but don't look at what the company can afford to pay. Yeah, they can. But if that worker has the skill training, we have so many programs that we have for the state that are out there with Atlanta Regional Commission. Some of the local governments have training programs, and these are programs that they are paying for you to be able to go and get training. You're not having to come out your pocket. So you go get training, guess what? They're going to have to up that money that they're offering, because your skill is going to demand that it has to be paid that much. But not someone that just graduated from high school, don't know how to do nothing. I'm gonna go make $15 an hour. Then you ask the question, well, I had to go to school. I had to do so many years of training. I had to go and do continuing education training. Is it fair for somebody that don't have to do all that to walk in on the job and make the same amount, almost close to what you're making to a certain extent? Well, that's what y'all decide on that part. Okay, so getting back to my list, I want to make sure I touched everything. We have about 7 minutes left. I appreciate you all listening in on WCEG Talk Radio with Issues and Answers. I'm Valencia Stovall, Honorable Valencia Stovall. I get to use that. I was using the title then, but I can use it again also now, not being elected. So now some of the things I see as challenges for Republicans and Democrats going into the 2021 session. Racial tension is still going to be at the top of the chart. It has to be dealt with. Redistricting. So for those who don't know what redistricting is, that's when the ones who are in the majority, when I say ones, that means the state, the representatives and the senators, they decide what the representation should be for a certain district. So all of you all live in a certain district number. And if you're not sure what your district number is, you went and voted, but you probably didn't pay attention to that district number. For most people don't. So you can go to the Secretary of State's office, the sos.ga.gov, put in your first initial, last name, and your county. I think you might have to put your date of birth in. Yeah, date of birth. And it'll pull up your registration card. And you can look on there and see what House district you're in and what Senate district you're in. And also school board and city council as well. So what happens is on the state level, they're able to draw, you think about the map of Georgia and you think about it's broken down to your district. They can go in and carve out areas. They can you can be, right now it could be 2 streets. On your street, you can have both sides in one district. They have the ability to go in and carve that out when you only have one side of the street is in the district and the other side of the street is in another district. But of course, they have to make sure that they are not discriminating against with race when that's done. That's where the Justice Department comes in. And you'll probably see some legislation being introduced on the federal level to reestablish allowing the Justice Department to come in and really look at that redistricting. Some years ago, they were not able to come in and do it. It was restricted on how much they could do. But still, that's in the hands of the majority. That's why I talked about earlier when I told you all that Georgia was still a Republican run state. That means you have a Republican in every state level office is a Republican. The governor is a Republican. The majority in the House are Republicans. Majority in the Senate are Republican. That means decision making. And they're deciding what bills are going to go through and what bills are not going to go through. Someone else said skill set is indeed relative to the pay grade. And then someone else said, who is the new state rep for this? Okay, so let me go to one other question. So we, the community, should have the resources to receive $15. Yeah, you should. And like I said, there are programs out there and available that will help you if you want to do better, especially during this time of COVID. There are special grants that's been established, and grant means you don't pay that money back, y'all. That's been established because of the hardship that COVID-19 has caused and has dislocated a number of people, adults, that usually have worked on jobs for years, but now their job is no longer there, or their hours have been cut. So you can go to the technical college system of Georgia, or if you know a local technical college that's near you, contact them and ask them about the grant program you want to come in. And each county has a worksource organization as well. Or you can go to atl.org. I think that's the worksource, or Google worksource, and put your county in. And then contact them and tell them that, hey, you want to know workers that have been displaced, what kind of programs they have for you. So go ahead and get that. So another comment was literacy initiatives should be a priority. If you can't read, you're already behind. Trickle-down effect makes these kids more vulnerable to delinquency. I definitely agree with you on that, Deborah. So someone asked the question, who is the new state rep for District 74? I'm not going to say the person's name. What I'm going to tell you how to do is Google. State Rep District 74, or better yet, you can go to legis.ga.gov. It's legis.ga.gov. Click on House of Representative members, and you can go down and look at the number, or you can, like I said, you can Google the name. It should be updated now in Ballotpedia, who the new person is. So I definitely encourage you all to do that. Those who stayed in my district, put that person to work. Any of you all who have state representatives and senators and you don't know, shame on you. You better contact them. If you never contacted them before, this is the time to contact them because of COVID-19. All right, look like we have about 2 minutes left. I got a little bit more to go on here. And so we talk about redistricting, and then the number of bills, I'm going to be watching to see how many bills that the Democrats going to get a chance to pass because of all this high energy when it comes down to parties. And normally it's about 10 bills that they get a chance to make it to the governor's desk every year. So I'm interested to see if they still gonna have that 10 or it's gonna be less than that. But you are gonna see some very contentious, I think, debates on the House and Senate floor this legislative session. Okay. And so you want to make sure that your elected officials are meeting the needs of you as a constituent. All right. Talked about connecting you with the legislators. The Georgia Youth Career Center. So many people have been asking, Representative, what are you going to do? Or Ms. Stovall, what are you going to do? You're no longer down at the Capitol. What do you have next? Well, many did not know, but I always have had my small business, which is Val Promotions. And I don't know if y'all can see the cup. We did a coffee mug. It's a bottle. You'll see some more next week. I'm going to put it in the background so you all can see. And even this plate was a custom plate that I did with my business. But the other thing that's really true to my heart is education and our youth and young adults. So I created Georgia Youth Career Center, LLC, as a career counseling and training program for youth and young adults 12 to 23 years of age. And we're going to be talking about helping them with identifying those careers. You hear me talking earlier about how important training and careers are. Most of the times what happens with our young people, they don't have the exposure to know about all the other careers. Only ones they know about are usually the ones that they see in their community. And if you live in an underdeveloped community or one that's not high in economic development, then you only end up seeing those lower wage type of jobs. But that doesn't mean mentally and physically and emotionally that you have to settle for those jobs. No, you can have a higher paying job. But if you don't know about it, and a lot of times our counselors are already overrun with so much other things they have to deal with, that actually having a career counselor, unless you're in a school district that really can afford and put the resources towards it, many of our kids are left behind. And even in some private schools, I've talked to some private school students, and they have been left behind when it comes to exposure. So what I want to do with GYCC, that's the short name for it, is being able to provide those services to our youth and young adults to make sure that they are part of the Georgia workforce. And whether that's working for a company or whether that's being an entrepreneur, that's what I'll be doing. So you all hear me talking about it more each week about things that we have coming up that'll be upcoming. And also we'll be selecting career mentors. So if you're interested in something like that, you can send me a note on being a career mentor. I think it's important to be able to have someone in that field that can tell you, hey, and check on you. Hey, how you coming along? We set those goals. And it might be a 5-minute call once a week just to check on our youth and young adults and making sure they're staying on track. You know, we have apprenticeship programs here. We have internships that can be done, job shadowing. It's so much that can be done to be able to help our young people. There's the I Am Powerful Teen Summit that's coming up February the 20th. You hear me talk about it a little bit more next week. You can go to changeforhope.org, and that's Ms. Deidre Poindexter. She's the creator of the I Am Teen Summit. I participated, I think, every year that she's had it. I think this might be our 4th year that we're doing it, collaborating together. Also, another thing that I have decided to do, and as I get ready to close, I see my time is coming up, is being able to offer classes to those who want to know firsthand a little bit more detail, because you can't share everything on here because you only have a certain amount of time. But I decided I want to offer classes to those who want to know a little bit more about how the government works, how to maneuver through the government with that, because of all the years of experience that I've had. And it's going to be called the Stovall Policy Series. So be on the lookout for that I'll be posting. And some of the classes starting off we'll be doing is holding elected officials accountable, politics, what are the differences when you talk about local, state, and federal, the ins and out of the bill process, and that's laws, how the laws are actually passed. And so you want to run for office. The next one is how long is too long for elected officials to serve in office, and making election and politics work for you. Because at the end of the day, as I begin to close, and I thank you all for joining me, is that policies are the ones that affect you, your everyday life. And many times people have heard me say this over the years, and it's true. It decides on what your living conditions are gonna be like, what your job conditions, what the availability of jobs, your housing, your health care. Everything you do is based on policies. And when you understand how all of those policies work, then you learn how to make them work best for you. And even if you don't like the way they're set up, you'll know how to go and challenge those policies and challenge those ones who've been elected, who you elected to be able to represent and be your voice, because that's what elected officials are. They are your voice in those rooms, in those situations that you can't walk in personally, but they're there as your representative and your mouthpiece. You think about having a megaphone and you said, hey, that's what the elected officials standing on this side of the megaphone, the little small side. And when they speak, they're speaking to the masses. So thank you all so very much for joining me. And I believe I have the classes starting on next Monday at about 7 o'clock, but I'll be posting some more information. But thank you all for listening in to Valencia Stovall on Issues and Answers on the #1 WCEG Talk Radio, and it's WCEG Network. Thank you so very much. And remember, mark your calendar. I'll be back again next week, next Monday, at 4 o'clock. Tune right back in again. Thank you so much.